Thank you very much for inviting me tonight. I really, really appreciate that. How many people in the audience are entrepreneurs or would like to be entrepreneurs? Oh, a good chunk of them. How many are investors? Good. How many are just here for the free food and drink? Everybody, including Mr. Ambassador. That's good to know. So guys, I'm going to spend the next 10, 15 minutes talking a little bit about digital disruption, what it is, how you do it, and where I think it might be going. There's a fantastic book by a guy called William Goldman called Adventures in the Screen Trade, where he talks about Hollywood. And it has a very famous line in it about Hollywood, which goes, "Nobody knows anything." And I think that's exactly the same for the tech world. Nobody knows anything. So anything I'm about to tell you, take it with huge grains of salt, assuming I don't know anything, and do whatever you want to do. If there's something you think is useful, let's have a chat about it. Let me give you a couple of seconds about myself. I'm an entrepreneur. I founded 4 companies. I was one of the initial investors and founders of a company called Shazam, which is a piece of music recognition software that some of you may know. My last company was a company called Seatwave, which is a ticketing company that I sold to Ticketmaster. And right now, I'm a partner and managing director at BCG Digital Ventures. It's part of the Boston Consulting Group, and we build digital technology companies for large corporates. In the last 2 years, we've launched about 25 new companies worldwide. So that's me, that's what I am, and that's who I do. So what is disruption? One of my favorite quotes is by William Gibson, the writer. He says, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." As people, we tend to completely overestimate what you think will happen in the next 2 years as far as technology is concerned, and fundamentally underestimate what we think will happen in the next 5 years. If you look at what's happening in the world today, we think Google, Facebook, et cetera, are absolutely leading the technology world, and of course they are. But you take India. India has the single biggest biometric database in the world. It's called Aadhaar. It's got 1.2 billion people on it. It has a database of 1.2 billion people with all their biometrics. So you can now open a bank account in India with your fingerprint. You can get a mobile phone in India with your fingerprint. It's one of the most sophisticated databases in the world, and it's opening up massive opportunities. So what you're beginning to find is around the world, technology is moving in very, very different ways. And why is it happening? It's happening because digital and physical are meshing together. And it's impacting every part of the value chain. And I'm going to give you a few examples of this in a minute. It's not new. It's been happening over 3 decades. Remember I said nobody knows anything. In 1990, some of you may not even have been born in 1990, but in 1990, it was the desktop age. Microsoft and Intel dominated the world. But they completely missed the internet. They did not see the internet coming. Nobody knows anything. 2000 was the internet age. Amazon and Google completely dominated everything. But they missed mobile. They didn't see mobile coming. You then have Facebook and Apple that's kind of dominating what's happening in mobile today. So there's an interesting question about where is this going to go from now? Nobody knows. If you ask me, I think the next decade is going to be about big data and how big data essentially makes intelligent devices work. So whether it's the Nest, whether it's a drone, whether it's a self-driving car, whether it's Alexa from Amazon in your home, your whole life is going to change because of these devices that are intelligent, and it's meshing hardware and software together to allow you to do new things. And there are massive opportunities opening up over there. And people like Facebook, et cetera, have been buying companies like Oculus Rift in that area because that's where they see it going. But there's other interesting trends happening. I don't know how many of you saw today. Amazon made one of the most surprising moves any of these tech companies have ever made. They bought Whole Foods. They bought a bricks and mortar retailer for billions of dollars. Fascinating move for Amazon to make, beginning to think about digital and physical meshing together in a very, very real way. But I think the word disruption is very misleading. What disruption is, it's about the redistribution of profit pools. It's not something new. It's taking money from one place and moving it to another place. It's taking money from Borders and moving it to Amazon, so Borders' market cap goes down to 0. It's taking money from Nokia, which thought the whole world was about hardware, and moving it to Apple, which made it about software. It's about Blockbuster moving to Netflix. It's about classified advertising moving to Google. So it's identifying these profit pools and technology moving it elsewhere. And as entrepreneurs in the audience, there's a very smart thing to start thinking about your next business, which is which are the profit pools that are the most vulnerable? Is it Century 21, which is a big real estate company in the US? Is virtual reality going to make Century 21 obsolete? What's going to happen to Ford as smart cars come in? What's going to happen to Swatch as the smart watch comes in? What's going to happen to EDF Energy when the smart home comes in? What's going to happen to all the profits being made in this area as these new businesses arise? And my single favorite quote in this presentation is from Stephen Elop from Nokia. We didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. And that's actually very powerful because Nokia never did anything wrong. The world just changed around them, and they didn't see it changing. They thought it was all about hardware, and it became about software. And that's one of the challenges that a lot of these companies face. So why does disruption happen? There are 5 broad business models to think about. The first is new business models and markets, beginning to find new unmet needs. This needs you to change your frame of thinking. If you've worked in Hilton hotels for 10 years, 20 years, it's impossible for you to think that somebody's bedroom can become a hotel room. You just don't think like that. A hotel is something very specific. It's a building. It's got a reception. It's got check-in. That's what a hotel is. Airbnb thought very differently. They said someone's bedroom can become a hotel room. So suddenly they've changed their frame of thinking, and they've become the biggest hotel company in the world. It's about distribution, more cost-effective way to distribute goods. It's much easier to get my movies over Netflix than to go down to the local store and Blockbuster and rent a CD or a DVD. It's about changing your function and experience. There's a great story about Uber. When Uber wanted to launch in San Francisco, they got Goldman Sachs to try and ask them, how big is the market for us going to be in San Francisco? Goldman Sachs did an analysis of the taxi market. They said, well, the taxi market in San Francisco is about $300 million. If you're lucky in your first year, you might get 10% of that market. In year 1, you could get a $30 million revenue business, which is not a bad business. In their first year in San Francisco, Uber did $450 million. Why? Because it wasn't the taxi market they were going after. They were going after convenient transport. The reason the taxi market was only $250 million was because it was really difficult to get a taxi. The minute you make it so simple to get a taxi, you figure, I'll just get a taxi from here to there rather than take a bus, rather than walk. So they completely expanded that market and changed the frame of reference. Changing modalities. Spotify completely changed the way you buy music. And finally, new products and services, beginning to think about how do we meet new expectations for clients. So you've got Unilever buying Dollar Shave Club for $1 billion because they changed the way people shave. Not something you'd imagine that would happen. And it's accelerating. Another 1 billion people are coming on board. Your iPhone 6X is 120 million times more faster than computers from a couple of decades ago. 5G is going to be 5,000 times faster than 3G. You can now buy a Raspberry Pi for $5 or a phone in India for $35. And finally, mobile is now what everything's all about, as you're well aware. So this stuff is accelerating. So how are industries changing to do this? The consumer world, and if the entrepreneur's looking at consumer world, it's an I want it now world. It's all about how do you deliver something to me within minutes, whether it's transport, whether it's food, whether it's entertainment, whether it's groceries, give it to me now. And that is changing the way people need to do business because those expectations that are there now, partly because of what Amazon did and what others are doing, are beginning to change the way all companies have to think about it. Retail is being disrupted. Amazon started in 1995 as an e-commerce site. It then became multi-channel, omni-channel, personalized shopping. Now it's all about mobile and social shopping. It's about predictive analytics to make real personalization happen. So retail is completely changing. E-commerce penetration is still very, very low. In the UK, which is one of the highest in the world, it's only 15%. So 85% of the market is still bricks and mortar. So we're still actually at the foothills of this entire e-commerce revolution. But we all think it's been there forever. There's a fascinating thought experiment that somebody did a couple of weeks ago on the internet, which is if you begin to think about Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Apple, Netflix, and you had to give them up one by one in order, which one would you give up last? It's a really interesting thing to think about. I finally decided on Amazon because Amazon's become so integral to my life and how I shop. It was the one thing I decided I couldn't live without. But other people will have different views. And you think about how enmeshed these things are in your life today. It's about mobility disruption. There are three major overall factors that have hit the mobility industry all at the same time. The first is the shift from internal combustion to electric, driven by regulations. Norway has said by 2025, all cars in Norway have to be electric. No more combustion engine cars. Massive disruption to that industry. What happens to an industry when your car becomes a computer on wheels? The second big change is a shift from human-driven to self-driven. When your car is driving itself, you could save 5 years of your life that you spent driving cars. What's going to happen to people in those 5 years that they've saved? The media company is already getting in there. They want you to consume more media while the car's driving you to work or driving you somewhere else. And the third big shift that's happening is from ownership to transportation as a service. My daughter's 20 years old. She doesn't want to get a driver's license. She figures, why do I need one? I can always call an Uber whenever I need an Uber. So some major changes happening in the car industry. And the quote on top, I think, is a very interesting one from BMW, saying, we have to fundamentally change what our business is about. Otherwise, we'll become Foxconn to Apple. We'll just give them the chassis, and they'll put all the intelligence in it, and we'll just become a commodity. This is BMW talking. Some pretty fundamental changes happening over there. Big changes in manufacturing. There's an interesting push about mass customization. If you're manufacturing products, everybody wants something personal to them. How do I create the economics to make you think you're getting a personalized product when actually I still need the economics of mass manufacturing? The segment of one, how do I use 3D printing to personalize products for you? And finally, the idea of local. Everyone's getting concerned about carbon footprints. How do I make my economics work while manufacturing locally? Some pretty fundamental changes happening here. So now you've got things like this. Epson has essentially launched a printer where you can essentially make your waste paper into office paper in the market. You put your waste in the office. You put your waste paper in one end, white office paper comes out at the other end. You can now do all your 3D printing in the office or at home. And this one I love, having founded Shazam, is you can now diagnose a machine's health by listening to it. So you have an app that you just put in front of a machine, and it'll tell you how badly or well the machine is doing just based on the sound of the machine. Incredibly powerful changes coming to manufacturing. So we help corporates build startups. And one of the things we always think about is, how do corporates compete against these startups? What are they supposed to do? And it's hard for corporates. Any of you who've worked for big companies, it's really hard. As I said, they don't think the right way. If you're Hilton, you can't think somebody's bedroom is become a hotel room. There's fear of cannibalization of your core business. Well, if I launch this business and it attacks myself, I'm going to cannibalize myself. A lot of resistance to protection of internal kingdoms. Businesses are silos. I've built this business. I've got this position. Why am I going to give it up? Very important, the market wants predictable results from a startup. Amazon got a free pass. Amazon was allowed to make losses for 20 years, and its market cap kept going up. There's a great quote which says Amazon is a charity run on the behalf of consumers by its shareholders. 20 years, but they're not going to let any other company get away with that. Lack of capacity. You as a manager have your day-to-day job. You're bonused on your day-to-day job. How are you supposed to think of innovative stuff? And a lot of other reasons. Fear of failure is a big one. Corporates don't like failure. If you're a startup, you have to be prepared to fail. So this results in incremental changes in a corporate, over-dependent on external vendors, long multi-year development timelines, and they haven't been able to compete. So we're sitting down and saying, what do you need to do? We did a great analysis looking at a typical Fortune 500 company. It took them 20 years to get $1 billion market valuation. Oculus Rift got there in 18 months. So we said, so what makes these billion-dollar unicorns unique? And we ask ourselves 3 questions. And if you're doing a startup, these are the 3 questions you've got to ask yourself. I'm not suggesting it'll give you a successful startup, but if you don't answer these 3 questions, you're much more likely to have a failure. The first question is, does it matter? Whatever startup you're doing, is it solving real customer pain points? If it's not, it doesn't matter. And is the market you're going after big enough? Are you creating something that's going after the global hotel market, the global taxi market? Is it a big market you're going after? The second question is, does it work? Does it work technically? Does it have a clear product vision? Does it work financially? Can you acquire customers at a good enough cost to make money on them? And does it work operationally? Do you have a business model that works? And most importantly, how do you win? How do you get the right team together to win? I used to be a VC, and the first thing we looked at was, who is the team? What have you done that makes me feel I'm going to give you $5 million of my money to make a successful business? Why are you going to win? 3 questions all entrepreneurs should ask themselves. So corporates have a bunch of assets, and what we try and do is take those assets they have, like market knowledge, brand, cash IP, link it to passion, culture, rapid pivoting that they don't have, and help them create these unicorns. I'm going to end finally by saying it works. Corporates that do this very well, can innovate much, much more than startups, and create successes for them. I normally have a final quote I'm going to end with, which I didn't put into this presentation. I'm a huge fan of Bob Dylan. And one of my favorite quotes, which I actually tell my corporate clients, but I also tell entrepreneurs and people here, is if you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. And it's very important to continually be born. Thank you very much.